So we're starting off, ladies and gents, with this very last section of page 5. It reads, "Do you mind," and then Clarice McClellan said, "Do you mind if I ask, how long have you worked at being a fireman?" "Since I was 20, 10 years ago." So this is where we get his age. He's 30. "Do you ever read any of the books you burn?" He laughed. "That's against the law." Remember, this is the very first time that we see the actual law. There is an actual law against reading in this society set really far in the future. And we talked about yesterday how some of y'all might be pretty happy that if all of a sudden it became illegal for you, for me to make you read a book. We start back up here today, so let's go ahead and start writing as we go. "Oh, of course. Oh, it's fine work. Monday, burn Millay. Wednesday, Whitman. Friday, Faulkner. Burn 'em to ashes, then burn the ashes. That's our official slogan." Let's go ahead and stop right there, though. Before we continue on, do you know who any of these people are? Do you know who Monday, burn Millay? For some reason, the PDF version we have sometimes says bum instead of burn. I don't know why. Do you know who Whitman is? Or do you know who Faulkner is? No, it's not like the movie Meet Fockers. It's not like that. Do any of y'all know any of those names? Millay, Whitman, or Faulkner? They even sound familiar. No one? Come on, ladies. Yes? Faulkner? Yes. This one especially should ring some little bells because he did have a home down in Oxford. In fact, he's even buried down in Oxford, Mississippi. That's where he lived for most of his life and where he is buried now. Actually, there is a museum there. You can go visit his old house. But these three people you do not know, not really. So let's be introduced to them briefly with a quick passage. I have this printed off for us so that we can look into it. All it is one single sheet of paper, and it has 3 different kind of excerpts from these authors. It showcases a little bit of their talent, what they commonly wrote about. Our first one's Millay. Her name is Edna Millay. She was right at the turn of the century of the 1900s. She, in this poem we're about to read, writes a little bit about love. She writes, "Love is not all," by Edna Millay. "Love is not all. It is not meat nor drink, nor slumber, nor a roof against the rain, nor yet a floating spar to men that sink, and rise and sink, and rise and sink again. Love cannot fill the thickened lung with breath, nor clean the blood, nor set the fractured bone. Yet many a man is making friends with death, even as I speak, for lack of love alone. It well may be that in a difficult hour, pinned down by pain and moaning for release, or nagged by want past resolution's power, I might be driven to sell your love for peace, or trade the memory of this night for food, or it well may be, I do not think I would." So she's talking about love there and how insubstantial love can be. In that first section, we have love is not all, it is not meat nor drink nor slumber, it's not floating spar, it doesn't save you. Love is insubstantial. It's not everything. Your life should not be surrounded just by love when it comes to love for other people. And it says here, love cannot fill the thickened lung with breath, nor clean the blood, nor set the fractured bone. Yet, people are dying right now for lack of love. So love, while it doesn't give us physical characteristics, it doesn't help us set your bones or help you breathe or anything like that, or clean your blood. People die because they don't have love. And it says one day, the love that you do have, you may even give up at some time for some type of release. You might trade it for a memory of this night for food, or you can give it away almost pretty cheaply sometimes. That's a really interesting idea that Edna Millay has about love. It says that title again is "Love is not all." Let's look at the bottom left one, the I Hear America Singing by Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman was famous for writing this type of poetry called stream of consciousness, where you would literally just think of a topic and then write down your thoughts, and your brain would just go, and you would just write down what you thought. Stream of consciousness is really difficult to follow. I really don't like Walt Whitman because of his stream of consciousness. Luckily, this poem that we have, or this section of a story we have, pretty sure it's a poem, is not written in that style, thankfully. It reads, I hear America singing, the very carols I hear. Those of mechanics, each one singing his as it should be, blithe and strong. The carpenter singing his as he measures his plank or beam. The mason singing his as he makes ready for work or leaves off work. The boatman singing what belongs to him in his boat. The deckhand singing on the steamboat deck. The shoemaker singing as he sits on his bench. The hatter singing as he stands. The woodcutter's song, the plowboy's on his own in the morning, or at noon, intermission, or at sundown. The delicious singing of the mother, or of the young wife at work, or of the girl sewing or washing. Each singing what belongs to him or her or to none else. The day that what belongs to the day. At night the party of young fellows, robust and friendly, singing with open mouths their strong melodious songs. So there we have kind of I hear America singing. He can hear these different types of people singing throughout America, what they own, what they have, what belongs to them. That's Walt Whitman right there. And as a brief example of William Faulkner, we have this idea of what a woman, after 50 years of marriage, I'm guessing is what it means here, and how their connection between the man and the wife is slightly different from when they started. Her house is empty, and her heart is old, and filled with shades and echoes that deceive. No one save her, for still she tries to weave, with blind bent fingers, nets that cannot hold. Once all men's arms rose up to her, 'tis told, and hovered like white birds for her caress. A crown she would have had to bind each tress of hair, and her sweet arms the witch's gold. Her mirrors know her witnesses, for there she rose in dreams from other dreams that lent her softness as she stood, crowned with soft hair. And with his bound heart and his young eyes bent and blind, he feels her presence like shed scent, holding him body and life within its snare. So this idea of between a man and a wife, at first, a wife is gorgeous, is beautiful, and everyone wants her. As it says, all men's arms rose up to her, 'tis told. But now she's old, and what she has done is she has woven for herself this young man's heart, or this man. So now he is bound to her. Now they are both old together, and they are bound heart and soul together, even after 50 years. Kind of an interesting idea there, at least how I'm interpreting it. So that's just a brief interlude of these three authors. You should for sure go and study these authors on your own time. They're fantastic pillars of our writing style in America, for sure. So I would heavily suggest going and reading them on your own at some point, either in the next few weeks or years coming up. I always want you to at least always be reading something. Let's keep going. Would anyone like to read out loud for us? There are possible bonus points for the quiz on Friday if you do. Anyone? Going once. Twice. Go ahead.
They walked still further, and the girl said, "Is it true that long ago firemen put fires out instead of going to start them?" "No, houses have always been fireproof. Take my word for it." "Strange, I heard once that long time ago houses used to burn by accident, and they needed firemen to stop the flames." He laughed. She glanced quickly over. "Why are you laughing?" "I don't know." He started laughing and didn't stop. "Why?" "You laugh when I haven't been funny, and you answer right off. You never stop to think what I've asked you."
All right, go ahead and stop right there for me. Now, we're seeing a little bit more about the society that Guy Montag lives in. It even says right here, "No, houses have always been fireproof. Take my word for it." Is this true or false? Is your house right now fireproof? No, so we know this is false. This is a lie. So he believes a lie. So who taught him this lie that houses have always been fireproof? Who taught you, let's say that Christopher Columbus came and discovered America? Who taught you, let's say how the body works? Who taught you how to read and write correctly? Who? Teachers. Yeah. Who pays the teachers? Anyone know? Who signs my paycheck? Who pays me? Does it come out of thin air? No. Y'all don't know? The government. The government pays me. I'm a government employee. Now, the school system is, the government pays the school system pays me, so there's a little bit of a line there. But the government pays my paycheck, all right? It's pulled from taxes. So, the people who have taught him, basically this is the government. The government has controlled the education system to make everyone lie to him, so that he believes this lie. It's going to be a government thing. Oops, that's got a weird arrow there. The government, G-O-V, has censored the people. The government has censored its people. This, in fact, is still happening today, even when it comes to some major countries like North Korea. Well, it's not technically a major country, but it is a country where this happens. I told y'all, I believe this last week, this is a statistic, a story I heard many years ago, that small children are taught to worship Kim Jong-un in their country as like a god-like character, a god-like figure in their lives. I think a funny story I heard about that is that they even teach them that their leaders don't poop or pee, because whatever they intake, or whatever food or drink they intake, they drink or eat, they burn perfectly, so they never have to poop or pee. That's kind of a ridiculous idea. But if you're taught that lie as a child, and you're repeatedly told that lie, you're told to believe that lie. That's true, that's true, that's true. Eventually, that's what you will believe. Eventually, you'll believe that houses are fireproof. If I told you that lie constantly. That happens. That has happened today. And it has happened even in our... it happens naturally with small children. We lie to small children because we want to censor them. We don't want to tell them all the truth until they get older. That's happening right here in the story, but on a grand scheme, a grand level here. Then finally he laughed. She glanced over. Why are you laughing? I don't know. He started to laugh again and stopped. Why? You laugh when I haven't been funny and you answer right off. You never stop to think what I've asked you. Right here is what we're getting, the important section here. You never stop to think what I've asked you. Especially that first part. You never stop to think. This is telling us a little bit about him as a character. He does not even think before he acts. He just laughs whenever he's given an uncomfortable question. How many of y'all have before in the past been like asking a question, or someone's been talking to you and you don't hear them? So you say, what? Oh, what? I didn't hear that second time. And by the third time, you're a little bit self-conscious. You don't want to say what again for a third time. So you just go, oh yeah. And you have no idea what they're talking about. I do that pretty often, okay? So, especially with the masks, it's a big issue. So, that's what's happening here. Instead of actually thinking, instead of actually trying to understand what she is saying, he just laughs it off and doesn't even think about what he is doing or what he's answering with. This laughter. So he does not think. You never stop to think. He stopped walking. You are an odd one, he said, looking at her. Haven't you any respect? I don't mean to be insulting. It's just I love to watch people. Too much, I guess. Well, doesn't this mean anything to you? He tapped the numerals 451, stitched on his char-colored sleeve. Notice here he does not appeal to her as being young. He does not say anything about her age and how he is an adult, so she should not question him. He doesn't do that. All he goes straight towards, instead of the usual, I'm an adult, you should listen to me, he goes towards his job. This is where we see he finds his fulfillment, that he finds his pride, that he finds his station in life is with his job. His pride, station, you can even say respect, is in his job. Notice that remember what his job is. To burn people's houses down if they even break the law of having a book. Oh no, I have a book here, all right? I should be killed. That's what's happening in this society here, all right? Yes, she whispered. She increased her pace. Have you ever watched the jet cars racing on the boulevards down that way? Oh, you were changing the subject. I sometimes think drivers don't know what grass is or flowers because they never see them slowly, she said. If you showed a driver a green blur, oh yes, he'd say, that's grass. A pink blur, that's a rose garden. White blurs are houses, brown blurs are cows. My uncle drove slowly on a highway once. He drove 40 miles an hour, and they jailed him for 2 days. Isn't that funny? And sad, too? You think too many things, said Montag uneasily. Go ahead and underline that section in that last line. You think too many things, and that makes him uneasy. Have you ever asked somebody so many questions, or the right questions, and they got kind of nervous? Maybe it's happened to you. Maybe you've gotten in trouble before, and you have someone grilling you with questions, and it's made you a little bit nervous. That's happening here. But why is it happening? It's only because you think too many things. You're too smart. You're making me nervous. You are obviously smarter than I am, so I'm kind of scared of you. I don't like that. I don't like to be seen dumb because I don't think like you do. This happens naturally in our own lives now. It makes us really wary of people who are really intelligent sometimes. We see them as being cold and distant. I can even speak to myself with this one. It's not true. These two brothers I know are extremely nice and they're really welcoming. But at first, when I didn't know them super well, I thought they were really kind of cold. I thought they were going to be really annoying to be around. Their names are up on the wall. They're in gold because these two brothers got, not on the wall right here, as in the Great Hall. Oh, no. They're on the Great Hall outside in the main hall, close to the door, the big front doors. They are actually brothers, and their names are in gold because they both got perfect 36s on the ACT, on the 30 and above wall outside. So, whenever I first met them, my wife was really close friends with them. I thought they were going to be I was going to be nervous around them. I was probably not going to like them. They were probably going to be all like, we're smart. They weren't at all. But I had this preconceived notion that they're too different from me. They're probably way smarter than I am. They're going to make me uneasy. That ended up being a lie. They were really nice. But you can even feel like this today with some people. You have too many strange thoughts. I don't like you. It happens. Plus, we also get a little idea about how fast cars are. Cars are so fast, they only see blurs outside. That's kind of insane. Hopefully none of you drive that fast if you're driving right now. We'll write a note about that in just a moment. Would anyone like to read the next paragraph? I really watch parlor walls. Okay. Let's go and stop right here real quick. Does anyone want something from the break cart? Go ahead and get something. I'll have a quick moment there. I'm going to go ahead and continue reading at least. So when we get back, you might have some notes. I rarely watch the parlor walls or go to races or fun parks. So I have lots of time for crazy thoughts, I guess. Have you seen the 200-foot-long billboards in the country beyond town? Did you know that once billboards were only 20 feet long? But cars started rushing by so quickly, they had to stretch the advertising out so it would last. Notice here, that's how fast that life is now. This is the fast-paced life. In fact, this fast-paced society is so common that they even had to stretch out billboards. Even today, our billboards are only like 20 to 30 feet long or wide. But in this story, in the future, they're 200 feet long. 200-foot long billboards. Tells you that fast-paced life, that fast-paced society. Something so simple as a billboard, you would think that Montag would know, but in fact, he's never really left his hometown. I didn't know that, Montag laughed abruptly. But I know something else you don't. There's dew on the grass in the morning. How many of y'all don't know that? There's water outside if you walk outside early in the morning. You'll get your feet wet. It's a pretty common thing to know. But Montag does not even know that. He suddenly couldn't remember if he had known this or not, and it made him quite irritable or annoyed, angry. And if you look, she nodded at the sky, there's a man in the moon. There is, in fact, a man in the moon. A lot of times it's a man-shaped figure-looking thing. You can still see it today if you wanted to. Whenever the moon rises, it's full. They walked the rest of the way in silence. Hers thought. He hadn't looked for a long time. They walked the rest of the way in silence. Hers thoughtful, his a kind of clenching and uncomfortable silence in which he shot her accusing glances. When they reached her house, all its lights were blazing. So he feels really uncomfortable here. He is uncomfortable here. He is not liking this situation. How many of you have been in a conversation with someone that you do not want to talk to? You feel really uncomfortable. Yeah, there you go. Just about everyone, or at least a few of y'all. And sometimes you might feel like it's their fault you're in this situation. I used to hate it walking downstairs and all of a sudden have family visiting, and I have to sit there and talk to them. Hated it. I don't want to talk to that aunt. No, I don't want to see my other cousin here. He was annoying. He smells weird. All right? It's uncomfortable to be around them. If my cousins are watching this, you don't smell weird. Since this is going on YouTube. All right? So they walked the rest of the way in silence. For her, it was just a comfortable silence. For him, he's really uncomfortable about this. What's going on? Montag had rarely seen that many house lights. Oh, just my mother and father and uncle sitting around talking. It's like being a pedestrian, only rarer. My uncle was arrested another time, did I tell you? For being a pedestrian? Oh, we're most peculiar. This is the second time that we've been introduced to her uncle. My uncle did this. We're going to see a really direct correlation and connection between these two characters. Her uncle and then her. Whatever her uncle thinks, she kind of also starts agreeing with. So they're obviously very close. Oh, we're most peculiar. Tell me real quick, what does the word peculiar mean? Anyone know? You can start off, you can say two words. One starts with an O, one starts with an S. Strange. Yes, exactly. Strange. Or you could say odd. Something different you could use as well. Strange or odd or different. That's what peculiar means. Something out of the ordinary. But what do you talk about? She laughed at this. Good night. She started up her walk. Then she seemed to remember something and came back to look at him with wonder and curiosity. Are you happy? She said. Am I what? He cried. But she was gone running in the moonlight, her front door shut gently. So we left off this connection between these two, this conversation between these two characters with this idea is he happy? It makes him really think. And that's the issue. Because she asked this question, he is left reeling, thinking. And thinking is the big issue for him. He's going to struggle with thinking here. The start of him thinking. The start of him thinking, and that's where we're going to have the downfall. Whenever he starts thinking about life, he starts questioning things. He starts realizing that things should not be as they are. And why are things the way that they are? He's going to start thinking about those things when people start asking him questions. No one else in his life, besides Clarice McClellan and one other character, ever asked him true questions. Everyone else doesn't care. They don't want him to talk at all. What's that? Yeah, I'll write you a note. So he starts off here happy of all the nonsense. Is happy nonsense? No. I see some of y'all shaking your heads. Be brave enough to answer, okay? No. Happiness is not nonsense. Happiness is almost, it feels like a human need sometimes to be happy. Here you go. You can come. But we see that as soon as he walks in, or as soon as he turns around, he stops laughing. Thank you. He put his hand into the glove hole of his front door and let it know his touch. The front door slid open. This is another idea of futuristic ideas here. Or I'm going to call them futurism here. What does this idea sound like? What does this sound like to us? Putting your hand on a lock and it clicking open. Should seem kind of familiar to those of you with cell phones. What is this like? Come on, people. I need some help here. You are killing me. If you have a cell phone, as I do, if you put your finger on it and click, it opens up, right? That's called fingerprint technology. Fingerprint scanning. That's what we're seeing here. He put his hand into the glove hole of his front door and let it know his touch. The front door slid open. There's a fingerprint scanner in there, or a handprint scanner. Of course I'm happy. What does she think? I'm not. He asked the quiet rooms. This is all going to be him thinking out loud. And he's not really talking at all during this time. These are all going to be thoughts. Right here are going to be thoughts. No, not thoughts. T-H-O-T-S, thoughts. As in he is thinking. All of these things from the rest of the chapter that we're reading today. The section that we're reading today. He stood looking up at the ventilator grill in the hall and suddenly remembered that something lay hidden behind the grill. Something that seemed to peer down at him now. He moved his eyes quickly away. So we finally get here. There's a mystery. Hold up. What's here inside of the ventilator grill? This is going to be a mystery for us to solve. Mystery. What's inside of the ventilator grill? We don't know. And also, why does he seem ashamed of it? It says right here, he moved his eyes quickly away. So why does he feel ashamed of this? There's a mystery, and he seems ashamed of it. What could this guy be ashamed of, or have that he could be ashamed about? What a strange meeting. What a strange night. He remembered nothing like it, save one afternoon a year ago when he had met an old man in the park, and they had talked. Notice here the ellipsis, these 3 dots here, or these 4 dots right here. This is going to be him breaking his concentration, his thoughts. You do this all the time. If you're in the middle of work and you start staring off into space, not doing anything, you might shake yourself to get back in it. He's doing the same thing here. Montag shook his head. He looked at the blank wall, and this section could get kind of confusing, so make sure you're listening to this one. Montag shook his head. He looked at the blank wall. The girl's face was there, really quite beautiful in memory, astonishing, in fact. So, he is talking about the girl. He says, in her memory, thinking about this girl, she was really quite pretty. She was beautiful, as it says, astonishing, in fact. Now he's going to talk about what she reminds him about. We're going to use a simile here to do this. She had a very thin face, like the dial of a small clock. So here we're going to have our simile. It's going to continue throughout the entire paragraph, so make sure you don't get lost. You've all seen a clock in the middle of the night. Maybe it's your cell phone. Maybe you have an actual clock that shines in your room. A clock does not question itself. A clock knows exactly what time it is. It doesn't have to stop and go, hold on, what time was it again? There's no question marks on the clock. It just tells you the time. It's for sure of it. It's sure of itself. It knows exactly what it needs to say and then does its job. That's what he says that she is like. She is like the dial of a small clock, seen faintly in a dark room in the middle of the night when you awaken to see the time and see the clock telling you the hour and the minute and the second. With a white silence and a glowing all certainty, and knowing what it has to tell of the night passing swiftly on toward further darknesses, but moving also toward a new sun. So he is saying that she seems really certain of herself. She knows exactly who she is about, what she thinks and what she believes. Just like a clock in the middle of the night, where you might sit there and question, what time is it? She doesn't. She's like a clock. She knows exactly what time it is or what is going about through her head. This is not a really normal way of thinking. All right, I get that. It's not. This is not normal. This way of thinking. Not normal. Think about it. This guy is not literary. He does not think figuratively. He only thinks literal. What's going on? What do I need to get done? Why are you here? Type things. So having this figurative language here, this simile, is really unnatural for him. He's going to even question that. He says in the very next line, out loud, what? Asked Montag of the other self. That the subconscious idiot that ran babbling at times, quite independent of will, habit, and conscience. Thinking like this, he went, what? Why did I think like that? That seems ridiculous. What? It's unnatural. He glanced back at the wall. How like a mirror to her face. So he goes from thinking literary, from very figurative thinking, to questioning, why did I think like that? Then he goes back to literary/figurative thinking right here. This right here is showcasing to us that he has a kind of an internal argument happening. This whole section is all going to be an internal struggle. You could also call this a character versus self, an internal struggle. Y'all, let's make sure we're waking up. Let's make sure we're waking up. Thank you very much. How much you focus is up to you. This is an internal struggle that he's having with himself. You've all had arguments with yourself before. How many of y'all had an argument that later that day went, oh man, I should have said that. Oh, you're going through it in your head. I'm going to hit that person next time with this and that truth. You had internal struggles before, internal fights. He's having one on the page right now. He doesn't know why he's thinking the way he is. It's because he started thinking. Or he was asked those questions that made him really prompt himself to think. How like a mirror to her face? Impossible. For how many people did you know that reflected your own light to you? People were more often, he searched for a symbol. He found one in his work, torches, blazing away until they whiffed out. How rarely did other people's faces take of you and throw back to you your own expression, your own innermost trembling thought? Basically, usually people are really selfish. They only think about themselves. Yeah, you did that, that's cool, but what did I get to do? Oh, I did this before, I did that before. Oh, you did that? Cool, I did this. We're all very selfish. It's very rare that you have someone who's humble, who talks about you. Oh, what did you do then? Oh, that's cool. How did you think about that? Really, that's cool. How about that? Makes you think for yourself. Throws it back at you is what he's meaning, is what he's saying there. What incredible power of identification the girl had. She was like the eager watcher of a marionette show. Do y'all know what a marionette is? Anyone? Top of your head? Marionette? You're not marrying a net. Haha. Y'all are boring today. Wake up, ladies and gents. Come on, help me out here. A marionette show is a puppet show. Puppets creep me out. I don't know about you, but that's what a marionette is. It's a puppet. A puppet show. Puppet shows have one person controlling all the puppets, generally speaking. They have one person who's using strings to control everyone. That one person knows exactly when that puppet's going to move its arm, when that puppet's going to act like it's breathing, when it blinks. A puppet master knows that. So she is like that. She is like the controller of a marionette show, or the eager watcher, someone who knows what's going to happen. She can identify exactly what he's thinking. She can, as it says, anticipate each flicker of an eyelid, each gesture of his hand, each flick of a finger, the moment before it began. How long had they walked together? 3 minutes? 5? Yeah, how large that time seemed now. How immense a figure she was on the stage before him. What a shadow she threw on the wall with her slender body. He felt that if his eye itched, she might blink. And if the muscles of his jaw stretched imperceptibly, or at the smallest amount, she would yawn long before he would. That's the power of identification, as he says. This girl has such good eyes. She really watches the world around her. She knows exactly what's going to happen before it happens. Why, he thought, now that I think of it, she almost seemed to be waiting for me there in the street, so damned late at night. Yes, this book does curse every once in a while. Perfectly fine. He opened the bedroom door, and that, right, ladies and gents, is where we are going to have some interesting conversation. When it comes to the bedroom, usually bedrooms aren't described like this, but with this one it is, and it's going to be kind of strange. So make sure that you are thinking about and looking at how he describes the bedroom, the language he uses. He opened the bedroom door. It was like coming into the cold, marbled room of a mausoleum after the moon had set. How many of y'all have ever been to a funeral before? Out of those people raising your hand, most of you are. How many of y'all have been there when they had the actual body on display? It's a little bit freaky, isn't it? Imagine yourself there with that body by yourself late at night. A little bit creepier. Whole room would probably feel cold. Same thing he's doing here. Walking into his bedroom, it was like coming into the cold marble room of a mausoleum or a tomb. Complete darkness. Not a hint of the silver world outside. The windows tightly shut the chamber a tomb world where no sound from the great city could penetrate. The room was not empty. The room was not empty. We're going to see who is there down here. He listened. The little mosquito, delicate dancing hum in the air. The electrical murmur of the hidden wasp snug in its special pink warm nest. The music was almost loud enough so that he could follow the tune. This little mosquito, delicate humming, or dancing hum, the electrical murmur of a hidden wasp, all those things are going to be headphones, essentially. In this time period, when the book was written in 1953, when it was published originally, the author originally didn't really know anything about headphones. In fact, he was turning this short story into a book. Whenever he was walking down his street one day and he sees this lady being kind of like led around the city with her dog while she's listening to music. She's for the first time he saw someone with headphones in, and they were like old school copper headphones, being led around because she was having trouble listening and focusing on the road. So her husband was leading her around. It freaked him out a little bit, and he thought, let's go one step further. What about if we had wireless headphones, which we have today? Their future is our reality. Same thing for us. If we think of something in the future, our science fiction could one day become reality. It takes a good imagination, though. The headphones, of course, are going to be inside a special pink warm nest. The ears. Some of y'all listen to music so loud, even if I'm not even close to you, I can hear what you're listening to. Same thing here. The music was almost so loud enough so that he could follow the tune. He felt his smile slide away, melt, fold over, and drown on itself like a tallow skin, like the stuff of a fantastic candle burning too long, now collapsing and now blown out. Tallow skin is the skin of a candle. Tallow skin is the skin of the candle. Have you ever seen a candle fall over? That's the tallow skin, the outside of it, that waxy feel. And that's how his smile, it just kind of drift away. Darkness. He was not happy. He was not happy. He said the words to himself. He recognized this as the true state of affairs. He wore his happiness like a mask, and the girl had run off across the lawn with the mask, and there was no way of going to knock on her door and ask for it back. He finally answered that question, are you happy? He finally answers it. He realizes, no, he is not happy. In fact, he is fake. He has the mask over his face, acting like he's okay, which is what we do a lot of these days. We act like, oh, I'm good. Yeah, everything's all right. When really your life is falling apart. You're not real. You're fake. Same with him. Next page. Without turning on the light, he imagined how this room would look. His wife, stretched on the bed, uncovered and cold, like a body displayed on the lid of a tomb. So we're still getting death-like descriptions here. The room is cold like a mausoleum. Something is there, a body is there, but the body is like a body displayed on the lid of a tomb. So a lot of death-like analogies or connections here, descriptions. Her eyes fixed to the ceiling by invisible threads of steel, immovable, and in her ears, the little seashells. That's what they call the headphones. They call the headphones seashells. The thimble radios tamped tight, an electronic ocean of sound, of music and talk, coming in on the shore of her unsleeping mind. Remember, this lady is knocked out. In fact, she's so unconscious that it looks like she's dead, and her eyes are not even moving at all. And this music is still playing in her ears. The room was indeed empty. Every night the waves came in and bore her off on their great tides of sound, floating her wide-eyed toward morning. There had been no night in the last 2 years that Mildred had not swum that sea, had not gladly gone down in it for the 3rd time. So for 2 years, there had been no night in the past 2 years that Mildred had not swum that sea and not gladly gone down in it for the 3rd time. We also get her name, Mildred, here. That's her name. That's going to be Montag's wife. Montag's wife, Mildred. Y'all done this before. How many of y'all have been so invested in like a video game or your phones, a video, or listening to music that you don't even think about what's around you? Or like someone has to snap in front of your eyes to get your attention. You were lost in your own world. You were borne off on the great tides of sound, just like she was. Now, I do this as well. You're not the only ones. I do this as well pretty often, especially if I'm invested in a good book. I lose myself for hours sometimes. But for her, it's even worse. It's like she's a dead body just laying there, unconscious. The room was cold, but nonetheless, he felt he could not breathe. He did not wish to open the curtains and open the French windows, for he did not want the moon to come into the room. So with the feeling of a man who will die in the next hour for lack of air, he felt his way toward his open, separate, and therefore cold bed. This is a pretty common occurrence back in the 50s, where people or couples would have multiple beds in a room. They would not sleep together all the time, a couple would. They'd usually have separate beds inside of a room. It was a common thing back in the 50s. It became less common, I believe, in the 70s, when it just became cheaper just to get one larger bed. This idea, in fact, goes all the way back to kind of like ancient, you can call it, times, or medieval times, when couples would literally have separate rooms if they were wealthy enough. An instant, so he's walking towards his bed now. He knows his wife is there. She is in her own world. She's lost. She's unconscious. So he goes over to his own bed. And an instant, before his foot hit the object on the floor, he knew he would hit such an object. It was not unlike the feeling he had experienced before turning the corner and almost knocking the girl down. His foot, sending vibrations ahead, received back echoes of the small barrier across his path. Even as his foot swung, his foot kicked. The object gave a dull clink and slid off in darkness. So, just like before, whenever he was turning the corner yesterday, and he ran across the girl, he thought the girl would be there or someone was there, and all of a sudden she was. Just like that, he's walking in his room and he thinks, I'm about to hit something. I'm about to kick something. You might think this pretty often in your own rooms. I know I have a dog who likes to chew on chew toys. And sometimes she will leave her chew toys around the house. This is usually okay during the day, but at night, this can cause an issue when I step on it and yell and start cursing in the middle of the night. Then I wake up my wife, and she is not super happy with me for waking her up because I'm in pain. I was barely able to reach that one. There we go. So he is walking to his bedroom, to his bed, I should say, and he kicks this item, and it gives a dull clink, so it's going to be empty. He stood very straight and listened to the person on the dark bed in the completely featureless night. The breath coming out of the nostrils was so faint, it stirred only the furthest fringes of life. A small leaf, a black feather, a single fiber of hair. So she is so gone, she is so unconscious, she is so knocked out that she is barely alive. She's barely breathing. That's not normal. Even at night, when you're dead asleep, you're still breathing pretty heavily. You're not going to breathe so lightly. He still did not want outside light. He pulled out his igniter, felt the salamander etched on the silver disc, gave it a flick. And what does he see? What comes to light after he shines his igniter? 2 moonstones looked up at him in the light of his small handheld fire. 2 pale moonstones buried in a creek of clear water over which the life of the world ran, not touching them. He's going to do this a couple times in these next few paragraphs. He's going to refer to parts of her body, or her body in general, as like a mountain or an item, like river stones, moonstones, or something like that. So just be aware of that. He's talking about her body here. 2 moonstones are going to be her eyes. Her eyes are like completely glazed over. They are reflecting the light like moonstones, but they're like 2 pale moonstones buried in a creek of clear water, over which life did not touch them. So your eyes are watery sometimes, of course, and if you're knocked out, your eyes are just glazed over, all right? You look like your eyes are covered in a creek of clear water, over which the life of the world did not touch them. Mildred. Her face was like a snow-covered island, upon which rain might fall, but it felt no rain. over which clouds might pass their moving shadows, but she felt no shadow. That's talking about her face there. There was only the singing of the thimble wasps, those seashells, the headphones. And her chant-shut ears, and her eyes all glass, and breath going in and out softly, faintly, in and out of her nostrils, and her not caring whether it came or went, winter came. She is so far gone, she could die in an instant and not care, because she's already so knocked out. The object he had sent tumbling with his foot now glinted under the edge of his own bed. The small crystal bottle of sleeping tablets, which earlier today had been filled with 30 capsules, and which now lay uncapped and empty in the light of the tiny flare. You may take sleeping capsules, and I can understand that. Some people need help getting to sleep. I get that. But you don't need 30 of them. You usually just take one. If you're taking 30 pills at one sitting, you're more than likely going to OD, which we see here is actually what's happened. She has OD. She's overdosed. She's overdosed on sleeping medication, or sleeping tablets, sleeping pills, whatever you want to call it. It's a major issue. And actually, her explanation of this, I will tell you she does survive. Her explanation of this is insane. And we're going to see it and make fun of her for it because it's ridiculous, almost, what she says happens or what she refuses to believe happened. As he stood there, the sky over the house screamed. Can the sky scream? No. It would be really freaky if as soon as you walked outside, the sky went, "Oh boy, you ugly." It'd be kind of weird, all right? That's a personification there. There was a tremendous ripping sound, as if two giant hands had torn 10,000 miles of black linen down the seam. Montag was cut in half, not literally, figuratively. He felt his chest chopped down and split apart. Notice his wife here is dying. She's overdosed on sleeping tablets. So he feels like he is breaking apart. He feels cut in half. He feels like his chest is being cut open because of a large sound happening outside and what's happening in his life right now. We get finally what happened. What sound caused the sky over the house to scream? The jet bombs, or so we have jet bombers, airplanes essentially, running over or going over the house. We where we live in Mississippi, have a really good connection to airplanes. We hear them almost constantly above our houses and above our neighborhoods. We get the idea of jet bombs being so loud, or of airplanes being so loud, that we can't even talk. Sometimes we have to scream to be heard over them. Same thing happening here. Here we have jet bombs, which are only jet bombers, which you'd only really use if you have a war going on, going over their house, while he is trying to scream because he feels like he is breaking apart with his wife nearly dying in front of him. The jet bombs going over. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 6 of them, 9 of them, 12 of them, one and one and one, and another and another and another. Did all the screaming for him because their engines are so loud. Their engines are so loud. He opened his own mouth and let their shriek come down and out between his bared teeth. Because he tries to scream, but the noise of the airplanes is so loud, you can't even hear it. The house shook. The flare went out in his hand. The moonstones vanished, her eyes, from the light. He felt his hand plunge toward the telephone. The jets were gone. He felt his lips move, brushing this mouthpiece on the phone. Emergency hospital, a terrible whisper. He felt that the stars had been pulverized by the sound of him screaming and of the jet bombs above him. This is our first reference to a war happening in our story, which is a common thing. In the background, you're going to hear a lot of talks about a war happening. So we have our main character in his storyline, and in the background, the whole country he lives in is at war. We're going to try to see who his country is at war with. We already do know that his country is very controlling, very manipulative, and is using heavily censorship. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that as we go. That's actually all we're going to be doing today, ladies and gents. We've done our reading. We've also looked at the examples of our authors. What I'm going to leave you now to, I'm going to give you, since this is the second block, your 15-minute break as usual. After that, I want you to go ahead and start working on your homework. I want to try to give you some time to get work on that. Remember, you do have homework from yesterday and today. Each homework is worth 25 points. At the end of the week, you're going to have, that's going to be a total of 100 points, or 4 homework grades combined together to have 1 quiz grade. All right? So take that seriously. It is going to be a quiz grade and one of your first ones as well. So go ahead and take your time now. Have your 15-minute break, or you can go and get started on your homework and then get started. Or you can have your break afterwards. Either one. All right? You have a question? Yes. Give me one quick moment.